Welcome to Amipal, the... Had a bit of a quake. Hello and welcome to Amipal, the #1 place on the internet for the sweetest Amiga content. This episode is about Quake, as you may have guessed from the intro. Now, Quake was released on the PC in June 1996 to much fanfare and critical acclaim. It was your standard ID fare, an action-packed 3D shooter in a world filled with demons. Yeah, that sort of thing. Now, Quake differed from Doom in that it was a fully 3D environment, texture mapped, light sourced. It was a much more advanced engine than the more simple engine for Doom. Many people didn't believe Doom could actually work on the Amiga, and indeed it never received a commercial release. But as soon as the source code came out, well, Amiga developers proved everyone wrong. Now, Quake, believe it or not, got a commercial release on the Amiga. Oh yes, it did. It wasn't the first non-PC release that went to the Mac, but ClickBoom released a version of Quake for the Amiga in 1998. Yeah. Fully Amigaized, utilised the Amiga drop-down menus. I believe it opened an actual Amiga screen as well. So it allowed you to choose all sorts of options and bits and bobs to optimise it for your system. How did that come about though? Well, you see, in 1997, a year after the PC release and a year before the Amiga release, there actually leaked onto the internet a version of Quake for the Amiga. Not by ID, but by, I think it was a demo group, somehow got hold of the sources and actually ported it to the Amiga. I saw it mentioned in magazines, never actually seen it out in the wild myself. But clearly it proved that it was possible and probably provided a bit of leverage for ClickBoom to actually say to ID, yes, it can work. Please, let us try. No idea how well it sold. Quake obviously needs quite a hefty system, and we're, 1998, we're talking about way beyond the commercial success of the Amiga. Many people had ditched their A500s, A1200s and what have you, and moved on to the PC, and indeed we're probably playing this game on the PC. But there were some of us still stuck with the Amiga. I say stuck, I mean that sounds bad. We were still loving the Amiga, so we didn't want to move on. And we were upgrading our systems, and Quake seemed to be one of those things that Amiga users could aspire to. So while it didn't run particularly well on a 68030, in fact, I beg you not to try it on a 68030. It is a postage stamp. It does not work. It ran on a 68040, not well at all, really. Again, I mean, even Alien Breed 3D 2 played better than Quake, and that's saying something. But on a 68060, it is very nice indeed. And I'm going to show you that today. I'm also going to go through some of the other ports that became available, because a year later, in December 1999, ID gave the world a wonderful Christmas gift in that they released the source code for Quake, which I'm not sure probably worked too well with ClickBoom, who probably thought, hang on a minute, well, I thought we'd get another year of sales out of this, but never mind. The Amiga got a multitude of Quake ports as developers dived into the source code, mainly PowerPC ports, either using the power-up software or the warp-up software. And indeed later you'd see Morphos and Amiga OS 4 versions as well. There were other 68K ports, not necessarily working as well as the ClickBoom one, but I think a lot of them were basically just kind of test articles. But again, we'll go through some of them and we'll see what the differences are and whether or not they're worth trying. So let's crack on with Quake. Okay, so here we are in my standard workbench directory opus. Workbench replacement. So let's start with Quake ClickBoom version. So 68060 Blizzard PowerPC in my machine. And it's just going straight out to a standard Amiga screen mode. So this is straight through the AJ chipset out the video port into my monitor. It's acceptable, isn't it? You can change the render routine to something that's like double buffered. You do lose a slight amount of frames per second. It's very minute though, but you just get a nicer screen redraw. You don't get graphical glitches and things like you see on the standard renderer. But forget that, because we can also set options here. We've got these extra bits at the bottom for video options, where you can also change everything like you could in the menu. I'm going to choose a graphics card mode and use my Voodoo 3, because that way it doesn't have to do the chunky to planar conversion, you see. What we'll also do is change the render routine to the 040060 copy routine, because I think that runs a bit faster. Let's make a start on the game proper. Just going to walk forward so we can put this alongside other versions. So it's all right. Let's go into the first level. I'm not going to do any of the secrets or anything. I'm just going to play through the game. Ah! I knew it was there and I still missed. Got him. Oh, I thought I got him as well. Oh well. Dog incoming. It's not quite the Twitch shooter you expect it to be. That's above me. How did he survive my fusillade? But it runs acceptably well, I think. I mean, this is a vast improvement over how it ran when I first tried it on a 68030 with the 6882 FPU. That I just don't even bother trying. It is a postage stamp. I'll see if I can dig up any footage for you, because it is like, you will see that it's just like, don't bother trying. On the 040 it was alright, but nowhere near as smooth as this. And I say that, you know, with a pinch of salt. I know this isn't smooth as such, but on an 040 you were looking at a 80% screen size and probably half the frame rate, so there we go. So that's the standard ClickBoom Quake, the commercial release that ClickBoom and Pixel Computers brought to the Amiga. We've also got, let's try this, Quake 68K. It's got a nice GUI front end, or MUI should I say, Magic User Interface, which is used by a lot of used for a lot of front ends for different tools and things. Let's save that. Okay, so this is one of the ports that came out after, about a year after ClickBoom had released the game. It's not overly smooth. I think the ClickBoom version has got a few more assembler optimizations in there and what have you. This hasn't got any kind of menu system on it, any way to choose a render engine or anything like that. It's just straight game. And you can see it's got a few graphical issues on it as well. This is what I meant by kind of curiosity, I think, rather than truly usable game. Right. I think it feels like it's like 1 frame per second slower than the ClickBoom one. I did do some time demos with Time Demo 2, and this came out about 8.7 frames a second, while the ClickBoom one was 9.6, 9.63 on a good day. It's not recommended. I say, if you can, get hold of the ClickBoom executable, because you'll have a much better time of it. It's yeah, it's not comfortable to play. You can understand with some other FPSs where they're kind of designed knowing that it's going to be a lower frame rate and they're a bit slower. Like Breathe 3D, for instance, although that does play at a quite nicely at a faster frame rate. This is oh, it's like wading in mud. Thick mud, gooey, thick mud. Oh, it's just, like I said, you got no kind of twitch with this. Maybe that's the way to do it, just run at them so they can't react as well. Ah! Yeah, this isn't recommended. I suggest if you're going to run a 68K version, whether it's on a standard Amiga hardware or via emulation, I suggest you get hold of the ClickBoom executable, because it's much nicer place to reside. Let's try something else, shall we? Right, let's give Quake WOS a try. That's Quake Warpos, which is a PowerPC version of the game. PowerPC port. Not sure I gave a recoverable out there. I'm sure someone can tell me, if they deign to. Excuse my shoulder. Right. As you can see, it's an instant improvement. Frame rate we're looking at this version is about 23, 24 frames per second, which is much more comfortable in terms of gameplay, isn't it? You can see it's just instantly faster and smoother. Let's get into it. Oops. Oh yeah, I need to sort out the mouse for this. But yeah, it's very sensitive mouse. Straight through. Loads faster as well. It's not just the frame rate, it's the overall experience. Don't run in front of him, I want to take out the man with the gun. Yes. You see, you can just achieve that twitch a bit better when the frame rate's up, can't you? Much, much nicer. I'm getting that this time. Yeah, I'm not doing secret areas. I just I want to get through it for you. Chunks. Interestingly enough, this uses the same, or that previous version we saw uses the same source code as this one, I think, and yet this doesn't have the graphical corruption, so I'm not sure what's going on. Come on, dog. Isn't that nicer? Straighten the slipgate. Thank you. Now, all Amiga versions of Quake have the console, just like any other version, which allows you to do things like run demos to ascertain the frames per second. This is how I've been able to give you the figures I've been quoting, and it basically runs the game faster than the speed the game's set to, but at the maximum frame rate it can draw, and it really gives you an indication of just how many frames are being rendered per second while you're playing it. I mean, it's just, imagine playing the game like this. Yeah, 23.7 that time. How about that? It includes the standard options that you get on other versions. That's running at 320 by 200. I don't want that. I'm going to press D to make that default, as it says on there. We'll see about going again. Doesn't look vastly different, does it? Just getting a bit more vertical resolution. Again, I'll run these side by side to see if there's any kind of difference. Whoa. Maybe slightly slower, but we won't know until I do a time demo 2, will we? Which, luckily, when you're running it on the PowerPC versions, doesn't take too long. When you run it on 68K versions, it feels like you're sitting here for 20 minutes as it runs through this. It isn't 20 minutes, but it can feel like it sometimes. What's that going to give us? 23.8, so a reduction of about 1 frame a second there. I'm okay with that. Now, there are other versions of Quake available for the Amiga, including 3D optimized ones that actually use the hardware of the Voodoo 3 or the or Blizzard PowerPC, Blizzard Vision graphics card. Unfortunately, I can't get it running. It just crashes every single time, so I need to do some tweaks to do that. But previously, about 15 years ago, I was able to run it via the Voodoo 3 3D acceleration, and you could get a 640 by 480 running at a really good frame rate, and it looked quite a lot nicer too. So unfortunately I can't show that to you. There's also, there are other versions that use the power-up software, but again, I cannot get it to run, or I can't find the right version that does run, so unfortunately that's the only one we'll run today. So that was Quake on the Amiga. I will point out one glaring omission, and that is the lack of the GL Quake version. Now, GL Quake on the Amiga comes under a package called Blitzquake, which is notoriously difficult to get actually working on Amiga hardware. It comes down to which version of Warpost you have installed. It comes down to which PowerPC board you've got installed. It comes down to the weather, who's in power in Parliament, all sorts of things. But no one seems to be able to get right exactly what you need to do to set up GL Quake correctly. So I'm sorry about that. if I manage to get it working after this video goes out, I'll be sure to include an addendum video on top, much like with the 68060 video a while back. But I hope you've enjoyed today's video. I mean, there's clearly differences between the power that a 68K and a PowerPC can provide, but it's clear that the PowerPC version is much more preferable. Obviously, if you're emulating an Amiga and you've got a bit of PC horsepower behind you, then yeah, sure, use the 68K version. It will work wonders, and it will probably smoke the PowerPC version with JIT compiling and what have you. But you know, it runs well on the Amiga, and it just proves that the machine is capable of much more than anyone previously thought. If you've got any questions about today's episode, or about the Amiga, or about Quake, about gaming, about setting up an Amiga for GL Quake, maybe not that, please give me a shout. Comments below as always, and thanks for watching. Cheers!